Ray Burton, and this is The Real Spiel. Shiloh Institute, stand up. It's not the live drive today on the Friday, but what it is still The Real Spiel. Coming and broadcasting to you from 39 floors up in Ontario, Canada. Saying hello to every Cyclops that is in the building, to all those that are part of the Spiel, and all over the world, from North Dakota to New Hampton. We are here to have a conversation with you. Listen, I know y'all are coming in. I'm going to take my time this morning. I had my breakfast. I'm about to go work out and go to the gym in a second. But I had to have this conversation because, some things you have to reflect on in a different type of way. Yes, you do. You have to have a conversation about it in a different type of way. Ash Smith, happy Friday to you as well. Good to see you here. I can't wait to start having this conversation. And the conversation is when Donald Trump wasn't a racist. I'm going to reiterate and keep saying it for all the people that are coming. When Donald Trump wasn't a racist. I know conservatives hate to hear us refer to Donald as a racist. So I wanted to go back and to have maybe a philosophical as well as a historical conversation about whether or not we can truly call Donald a racist. Before we have the conversation about Donald, we should really look into the context of racist in America. We should look into it, We should look into the context of it because people have said, that on one side, they said Donald Trump has always been a racist. And they have quoted many reasons that they believe Donald Trump to be a racist. They've spoken about, we won't even get to that one yet, it's a second, but basically his slumlord tactics of some of the places that he has owned, how he had effectively targeted lower income communities and gentrifying and putting properties in particular locations to take advantage of individuals from the Black community. Of course, the infamous Central Park Five, of which Donald Trump wanted these innocent Black boys to receive the death penalty. Innocent Black boys. He wasn't waiting for the administrations of justice to find these boys innocent, but he saw the blackness of their skin, they were saying, and he wanted blood. And we have things that are not even as old as the Central Park Five, but we have scenarios where we have seen the xenophobic and heard the rhetoric coming out of his own mouth that for many of us have moved him squarely, permanently into the racist category forevermore. And many of us will not remove him from there. But I want to mix it up a little bit, if I may. I want to mix it up a little bit. And I want to talk about a gentleman that I know personally and I've witnessed, a gentleman by the name of Reverend Al Sharpton. And I want to talk about Fat Al Sharpton. I don't want to talk about this Al Sharpton, this emaciated Al Sharpton that we're seeing now. I ain't talking about that Al. I'm going to talk about Fat Al. Fat Al, okay? Now, Reverend Al Sharpton today, nobody would besmirch the reputation of Reverend Al Sharpton today, but the Reverend Al Sharpton that I know of is a Black militant. That's correct. Hey, Reverend Al is a power to the people Negro, baby. Listen, Reverend Al was my man. They shouldn't have never admitted to the crime. Oh yeah, y'all want to fight that. We'll play with that one in a minute. They admitted to the crime because they had billy clubs upside their head, forced confessions by a very wicked New York City police force. They didn't admit to the crime without coercion and duress to their physical bodies. Young boys being beaten up and forced to confess to a crime. They shouldn't have confessed to a crime? Okay. Listen, Reverend Al, let me tell you a story about Reverend Al. My personal story about Reverend Al Sharpton. Remember now, as I tell you this story, remember that Reverend Al Sharpton is allegedly a Christian. Okay? A Christian. Here we go. So I went to Fairleigh Dickinson University in Hackensack, New Jersey. The Knights, 16C beats a 1. For those who know what I'm talking about, you know. And when I was going to Fairleigh Dickinson University, there was a party. And the party was the white fraternities and the black fraternities, the ZBT fraternities. ZBT, how you guys doing? And the black fraternities were having a collective party on campus. Now, the way that the Hackensack campus is set up, it's an open campus. Therefore, there are residences that are very close by. And ZBT, the white fraternity, those boys used to make people drunk like crazy, but they only drank Budweiser. Nasty beer, nasty. But they brought their speakers outside, and so did the other black fraternities. They brought their speakers outside, the alphas, and we didn't have really a lot of Qs there, but we had alphas, and we had Kappa men that were really big on that particular fraternity, that particular school, and you know, this is the time where these white boys love them some hip hop, and so they were playing more hip hop than us, and we were all having a great time. Well, there was a noise complaint that went out, and the police from Hackensack and Teaneck showed up on campus. And they showed up on campus with some big lion-sized German Shepherd dogs. These dogs were waist high. I'm 6'8", and they were waist high. They were as big as lions. 180-pound German Shepherd dog, big dogs. And they said, in no uncertain terms, remember, this is a mixed race of individuals having college fun. And they said, you niggers go inside. That's what the police officer said to us. Not one, not two, you niggers get inside. And me, as a Canadian, not used to this type of conversation from police forces, 6'8", 250 pounds of Negro, said, who the hell are you calling a nigger? I mean, I'm not getting inside. Well, that was a problem. And so they had the basketball team, the football team, and all of the other teams, and all of the others standing there, standing the police down face to face, and we would not move. Now, luckily, cooler heads prevailed. And me as the rabble-rouser, I said, in not realizing of the wonderful liberty that is going on, the lack of liberty that is going on in the United States of America, they can't do anything to us. We're on campus. We have a legal right to be here. They didn't like that very much. And those police officers, they moved from just calling us names to pulling out billy clubs. Well, you know, after those billy clubs came out, I realized that these good old boys from Hackensack and Teaneck were serious. And we de-escalated because we ain't had no guns, no billy clubs, and we did not have giant-sized dogs with us. We just were angry as hell. Well, after that, the student union, the basketball team, which I was one of the leaders, and all the other black individuals, and the white guys too, said that was absolutely uncalled for. And we started to tear that school up. And they said, you know what? Everybody calm down. We're going to get Al Sharpton out here. And Reverend Al Sharpton showed up the next day. He showed up with about 25 6'8" to 6'10", 300-pound Nation of Islam guards marching. Walked into the student union with Fat Al Sharpton. They stood their ground and set up around Al like Al was the leader of the black free world. Remember, Al Sharpton's a Christian with the Nation of Islam security forces at his disposal. And Al Sharpton said, we need all the white students to get out of here. And white students didn't wait no time because those giant Nation of Islam brothers did not look like they were playing any games. And they put all the white kids outside, and Al Sharpton sat down and had a conversation with us. Now, this is my first experience. I felt like I was in the civil rights movement. I felt like Harriet Tubman had come back to life, and I was trying to escape from a plantation with Reverend Al leading the way. And Reverend Al said, we're going to go and burn these white people's town down. I ain't going to tell you no more. That's the Reverend Al that I experienced. Black, militant, not playing no games, Reverend Al Sharpton. Now, do y'all think that this Reverend Al Sharpton is not that fat Al Sharpton? You think it's a different person? You think those two people are different? The only thing different is his suit size and the way that he combs his hair. Let me tell you something. Malcolm X, when Malcolm X was with the Nation of Islam, the things that he used to say, and the position that he used to take, and the mentality that he used to have against what he referred to as those white devils. And then later on, when he realized that his message was being heard broader, and he had to be more wise with his words, and he became a more moderated individual. And then after leaving the nation, do we think that the ideologies that existed in his head in respect to white folks had shifted? We know that his tour to Mecca caused him to worship with other white Muslims and other Muslims, and he got a greater and broader worldview. But in America, the plight of his people, do we think that he was different? My last person, Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali, another Muslim, black Muslim man who was imprisoned for his faith, who was stripped of his belt for his faith, who was criticized for his faith, and he said, and for not going and serving in Vietnam, and said the famous, infamous quote, Viet Cong never called me nigga. Do we think Muhammad Ali lessened from his position about his people and the sufferation of what he felt he was going through? Do you think any of these men that I have mentioned can actually be looked at and be told, and you can feel confident that the strong stance they had about race and about their own personal identity and who they were, do you think that later on in life that the persons that they were as young men were different than the persons they were as older men? And some of them, for example, Malcolm didn't live to much, being a much older man. My answer is completely, it's no. When Donald Trump was a younger man, Donald Trump was the belle of the ball in the black community. Donald Trump he backed Reverend Jesse Jackson for president. Donald Trump was a really good friend of Reverend Al Sharpton. Why did Donald Trump have this affinity in the black community that switched when he became a Republican and ran for office? In the eyes of black people, the Donald that was pre-President Trump and the Donald that is after President Trump. Why do some people believe that those two Donalds actually switched identities? Or do we believe that the Donald Trump that was young is the same Donald Trump that was older? Let me give you my perspective. When Trump was a young man, he wasn't running for politics. He was running for a different type of office. He was running to be the playboy, the financier of New York City. He had the same ideologies, the same ideas, and the people around him also did too. They wanted something from Trump, and Trump wanted something from them. Race was not Trump's priority. Money was. And Trump was seeking out money wherever he could seek out money, seeking out opportunity and becoming the benefactor and raising the stakeholding of his name, of his brand, wherever he could, whether it was at a fight and taking a picture with, oh shoot, I can't remember his name now, crazy hair, I'll come back to it, fight promoter and infamous bandit, robbed Tyson, robbed Holmes, robbed everybody else. His name will come back to me in a minute. Taking pictures with Reverend Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton, hanging out with black celebrities of notoriety, putting himself in those positions for no reason? No. He was a socialite. He wanted to make sure that when big boxing matches happened, they happened at Trump Plaza. He wanted to make sure that when big events happened, that black community, Asian community, any community would utilize his particular facilities and his services because he was building an empire. He was building an empire. Trump is an empire builder, and he will take the backing of anyone to build that empire. He is quite a chameleon. He has the capacity to pander to a multiplicity of groups, a multiplicity of perspectives, if it's for the benefit of Donald Trump. And we know, he said earlier when he was young, that if he ran for president, he would probably run as a Democrat. And why did he say that? Because he realized who were his supporters. He realized who were the people that were pushing his legend. It wasn't the white conservative. It was those individuals that I named, those individuals that had him caught up in the limelight. He knew Oprah Winfrey. He knew all of these black celebrities, and in his democratic mind, in his playboy mind, in his jet setter mind, he felt that's the community that's potentially going to support me if I try to do anything big. But Trump came to a drastic realization later on that we'll talk about in a minute. But these are some of the things that I want to say. Just because somebody is taking pictures with black folk, hanging out and sitting down and going to dinners and rubbing shoulders and at all these big, fantastic, wonderful events, that doesn't mean that you understand the ideology that's going on in their mind. There are certain things that will betray you. The Bible says that by their fruits you'll know them, but also your words will betray you. The things that pop out of your mouth will betray you. The arrogance that you feel that certain things that black people need without doing any research will betray you. And this is what has fueled the charge of people alleging Donald Trump's racism. What is racism? Is he just a bigot? Is he just prejudiced? Is he just biased? Let me help some of you. I don't think Donald Trump is overtly prejudiced. I don't think he sits around saying that I am prejudiced towards one type of individual or another if he finds that those people can be beneficial to him, because that's not what racism is. Racism isn't just simple prejudice. All of us are prejudiced. Racism is understanding that there are institutional instruments and structures that are set up in particular regimes, regions, countries that allow for a specific demographic or group of people to rise and have power easier than others. It is the capacity to say, you mean if I join with this group, I can oppress that group. Then I think that I will join this group and adopt the mentality that our group is better than your group. And that group's defining aspects are race. Racism is the institutionalization of prejudice that is now devoted to one specific group. Does Donald Trump take advantage of the privilege of both his money and his race in America? Absolutely. Does Donald Trump fan the flames of racial bias to his benefit in America? Absolutely. Does Donald Trump avoid what regular Americans who are not of his ethnicity and not of his power dynamic, does he avoid the penalties of his behaviors, his mistakes, and his crimes due to all of the other things in respect to his race? He absolutely is a beneficiary of those things. Could Donald Trump ever be in the same predicament as Sean P. Diddy Combs? I would say he cannot. He cannot, because he has connected himself to a particular infrastructure of America that we can see causes him to be bulletproof. And so when you evaluate these people, when you evaluate, is Donald Trump a racist? We are not evaluating whether Donald Trump is prejudiced, because we all would fail that test. We're not evaluating whether or not Donald Trump has particular biases or particular ignorances when it comes to understanding certain ethnic groups. We all would fail that test. What we are saying is that Donald Trump is both conscious and is also weaponizing the fact that race in America is something that can put you in positions of power and keep you there. And if you keep building the infrastructure of a racialized America, you can build quite a infrastructure of demonic power structures that look like, smell like, act like, and legislate like white supremacy. And we can see by some of his interesting picks for his nominations or for his positions, from the last time he was president to this time he was president. And he said that I'm going to do some very different things. And I would say that the verdict is still out on who he is choosing now. I'm not going to crucify anyone he has chosen yet. I'm not going to shine a dim light on anyone he has chosen yet. We remember who he chose before. Remember some of these individuals who he chose before. We also, I want to say this. I could run for any office in America, let's say. I could run for any office in America. I could be completely qualified. I can have a lot of support. I could have a lot of corporate money and personal money behind me. But there's something that I couldn't do just by showing up. And this is something that should be said. David Duke would never support me just by showing up. David Duke would never endorse me. And the David Duke regime would never endorse me simply for showing up. There is something to be said when David Duke and Grand Dragons of the Ku Klux Klan show up to support Donald Trump. He didn't ask them to support him. He didn't write them a letter and say, David and you Klansmen, will you support me? He is being supported by them because in their eyes and in the facts of what America is, he represents them. He is an ambassador for them. Whether he wants to be or not, he is truly speaking for them. We also know the history of his father, that his father was a Klansman. Now, let's not get away from that now, ladies and gentlemen. His father was a Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. Let's not get away from that. Let's not avoid that one. We're not saying Donald is part of that. And we're not saying that the sins of the father should fall on the son. But the apples, they don't fall that far from the trees. They don't fall that far from the trees. And so Donald, his label, if you will, of being classified as a racist is part and parcel of, yes, things that he has said that sound extremely racist. Extremely racist. in his former life and in his presidential life is his implicit ignorance. There's some great people on both sides of that conversation. Come on, Donald. His inability to point to things that are clearly wrong, that come from people of his background, and not disavow himself for it. To his credit, he did not accept the endorsement of David Duke. He absolutely, I believe, and if I'm incorrect, somebody can correct me, he didn't want any part of David Duke's endorsement. To his credit, from my knowledge, none of Donald Trump's golf courses are all-white golf courses. Bill Clinton belonged to all-white golf clubs. To my knowledge, Donald Trump intentionally made sure that his golf clubs were not, his golf courses were not racially biased, intentionally. And it was a business move, but it was still the fact that I do not believe that any of Donald Trump's golf courses are racially biased. Donald Trump has, and in times, used particular black people as spokespersons for himself. We don't like those black people. I didn't like Omarosa. I sure as heck don't like Candace Owens. But the truth be told, he has played the puppet master, utilizing a few black folk to fan the flames of his stardom, right? And we don't like them. We don't like them one bit. We don't like them one bit. I ain't gonna say I like them, but he has put a couple of black folks in particular places of alleged power. Not like our good friend Bill Clinton though, but he has tried to pull that off. He has tried to pander to the black community, to black pastors, to the HBCUs. He has attempted to do so. And so when I look at him, I look at a man who is completely self-absorbed. He is self-absorbed with his own legacy. And he doesn't care who helps build that legacy. But what he does take note of is that if he identifies that he is resonating with a particular demographic that can keep him in the position he wants to be, he will lean strongly in their direction. The same things that he did, Don King is the same things that he did with Don King, with Sharpton, with Jesse Jackson, with Oprah, and all of the other pundits, and all of the other socialites, and all of the other individuals that he hung out with when he was a non-presidential person. Now, as a presidential person, he has a different circle. He has a different group. He has a different power base. He knows who is coming to help him fight. And therefore, once he doesn't disavow himself from things that are known to be racist, once, and this including our not friend, David Duke, but he disavowed himself, in my understanding, he disavowed himself from David Duke. But he didn't disavow himself from the Proud Boys. He didn't disavow himself from other white supremacist groups. He didn't disavow himself from other individuals who put themselves in positions to say clearly that what they're trying to do is to send a regime of white supremacy down the throats of America. And now Project 2025, he is not disavowing himself of that. And that is white supremacy legislated. He's not disavowing himself from that. At one time he says, well, I don't even know what's in Project 2025. Well, all of his sound bites are clearly demonstrating that he knew exactly what was in it, because he's speaking Project 25 as the agendas of his presidential candidacy, right? The mass deportations, the attack on education that comes from a specific ethnic perspective that is so-called anti-American. He has dog whistled and code words to all of white supremacy groups, ideologies, and mentalities that are causing them to come and to see what Donald is cooking. Whether or not Donald's intentionality is specifically to say, I want to make sure that white is right. Whether or not he is standing there as the new Stalin or the new Hitler or a new individual that is representing the great Aryan white race, whether he's doing that or not, he is causing those people to show up for him. And these are things, let me just say it, they make some of us nervous. They make us nervous. I spoke yesterday. Why does Donald Trump love dictators? Why does he love this gentleman in North Korea, right? Clearly, we can't say, well, Donald Trump loves Koreans. He's a friend of the Korean people. No, Donald Trump likes that dictator in Korea. Well, Donald Trump loves the Russian people. He loves Russians. No, he's got a man crush on Putin. There's a difference. You understand? There's a difference. There's a great difference. Look at the context of this. How the Republican Party has a love-hate relationship with white Jews. You have a love-hate relationship with white Jews. And Donald is very careful how he deals with Jewish people, because the Jews, the white Jews of Israel, definitely were pushing hard for the Democratic Party. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Biden and Kamala had sworn to make sure they're going to keep the money rolling, the weapons rolling to Israel right now. White Jews wanted to make sure that that money kept rolling. Now they've got to sit down and have a new conversation with Donald Trump. But Donald's not stupid. He understands that there's probably as many white Jewish liberals as white Jewish conservatives. And he's got to be very careful with that community, because that community doubles its bet anyway. The Jewish community is going to put money in the Democratic Party's pocket and going to put money in the Republican Party's pocket. They're not stupid. They're not going to stand up and allow themselves to be ostracized by any particular regime once they get themselves in power. They're not dummies. But we hear not too much from Donald in respect to the Jewish community, but we hear a lot from white conservative Republicans when it comes to the Jewish community, because that community potentially votes Democrat, even though they financially support both parties. Anyway, let's have a conversation. Let's see what you folks got to say. I'm sure you got lots of opinions. Let's see what y'all got to say. Man, y'all come out to support me, boy. Go back to work, boy. The Golden Goose. I make a lot of money. I can take months off. And while you're still out there flipping pancakes, they shouldn't have never admitted to the crime. Oh, I read that one already. Victim mentality. I hear that every day. I know they were young, but would never confess to something I didn't do. If you had a bill up your behind, you might have to. You support rainbow people? Rainbow people. You mean the LGBT community? Go listen to my videos. You'll have an answer to that. Those who are really here all the time, they would know. Let me see. What are we discussing? Maddie, I think you got it. Typical race baiter. Paul Brady. It's interesting how we have these terminologies that you folks like. Let me see here. Brother, are we high? Okay. You would look good in dreads. Thank you. Don King. Thank you very much, Daryl Schultz. I couldn't get that out of my mouth earlier. It came to me later. Trump dated black women. Dated them? Or had sex with them? Let's go on. Let's move on. Yep, he let Kodak and Lil Wayne out of jail. Hey, let me tell you something. Kodak Black does not think Donald Trump is a racist. I bet he don't. Corey said he's no longer wasting his time here, but the algorithm brought you here, Corey, and it'll bring you back. The Democrats literally pick men in dresses for their cabinet. Scary stuff. It is scary stuff. Thank you again for those who told me it was Don King and I couldn't get it out of my head. With everything that is past, maybe he is one thing. He loves America, which is better than soon-to-be former administration. Oh well. You love Candace Owens. Of course you do. We don't. Um, Dude, what are you smoking? I don't smoke. I don't smoke. They own the world. Wow, wow, wow. Get to like everyone else or complain. I know. They hated him once as he ran as a Republican. Corporate communism. Let me see. He didn't apologize to the Central Fight. Yeah, he didn't, which was interesting. Um, all expandable. MAGA country now. We the people have spoken. Interesting. This brother is Jesus is returning and says, "We the people have spoken." You should believe in a theocracy, not a democracy. Uh, where are you getting your information from? My brain, Joseph Hernandez. It comes from my brain, comes out of my mouth, comes into your ears, and all of a sudden we all have it together. Uh, See this man? I don't know what that means. Trump is for the working citizen, not criminals. I don't know about that. If Trump is for the working man, I think Trump is for Trump, and I don't think he's for the working class person. I don't think you can say that. I don't think his policies are for working people. I think he panders to them. Remember, he was supposed to bring back coal. Where's the coal? Work for what you want, blow up. I don't know what you're saying. Oprah Winfrey show John Trump is saying the same thing about America back in her show in 1988 that he's saying now. Vespers are good. Never stop learning. The investments are up. That is very true. True racists don't pardon Black American artists like Kodak Black and Lil Wayne. Okay, well, you have a great point there. I'm not taking anything away from it. I don't think Trump is a good person, but he did stand with Ben Carson when everyone else. Well, we never liked Ben Carson, though. Ben Carson is a Black Republican doctor. Nobody said Ben Carson is not a brilliant man, but he's not a brilliant politician. And I don't think he's a man that understands himself. And I think Ben Carson is the greatest example of a Black person who is eloquent, who has risen to a level of prestige due to his skill set and his professionalism, and put himself in a position to run for election. But where is Ben Carson? Like, Ben Carson to me was one of the smartest Black men in America. And I don't know if the Republican arm of your government is ever going to recognize guys like Ben Carson properly. But Ben Carson, I don't think Ben Carson really understands Ben Carson personally. Hence the words, I don't think. Yeah, this is about thoughts, Jacksonville kid. The people are about to be even more broke and suffer. I believe you, Vic, because I talked about it yesterday. We talked about and the day before. I talked about what he's trying to do with China and his context of trying to make America a place that Americans should shop only. That's just bad economics. And his understanding of economics is faulty because Donald Trump is trying to be the biggest benefactor of his own presidency. He wants his pockets to be the biggest benefactor of his own presidency. The Democrats chased poor Ben away. The non-apology says it all. Ben was so smart, I think it affected his mental health. Gold went down 200 points. I didn't know that. I gotta look that up. Listen, you folks don't have to get so mad about stuff. Most politicians are turncoats. They will say one thing at one time and one thing at another. One person said that on the Oprah Winfrey show in 1988, Trump is saying the exact things that he's saying now. He's absolutely not. Trump's not even saying the same things that he was saying in the last election. Okay? He's absolutely not. And one of the things that I just don't understand why people do not come to an understanding of is that how many times has Donald Trump been bankrupt in his own businesses? You're trying to tote this guy as some fantastic economic industrial genius. He's not. He is the master of opportunity, though. because what he will do is he will license his own name. So you want to call your hotel Trump Hotels? Absolutely. But he's not running them. He's not managing them. This guy had his wife running most of his businesses in the past, right? So he's not this great financier, right? And I have experience with men who are very wealthy, but are not very smart. But somehow they fall into pockets of wealth because one little idea here actually generates more. And you might say, well, that's smart. That's fantastic. I know. I'll compare it to a guy who is an attractive, relatively attractive guy and can always pull a beautiful woman, pulling beautiful women after beautiful woman after beautiful woman. But then you got to watch, can he keep them? Can he keep them? He's always got a beautiful chick. You might say, tell me your secret, bro. What is your secret to getting all these beautiful? He doesn't have a secret. He doesn't have a secret. He just has the panache to pull off beautiful chicks liking him for periods of time. Donald Trump has bumped into particular great business ideas for periods of time. He's got into real estate. He's pushed that real estate thing hard. But how many times has he lost his shirt? How many times? So when you compare his private sector scenarios, and now you're putting this person in the position to run the public sector, and we know too, Donald Trump isn't the economist that's going to be running America. His thoughts are stupid. A lot of his thoughts are stupid, and he is not going to be functionally maintaining the supply and demand of America. There's much smarter people, thankfully, at the wheel when it comes to the stock market, when it comes to hedge fund management, when it comes to running the banks, when it comes to running the Fed, all these things, when it comes to managing interest rates in the country. Luckily for you, he is not at the wheel of every industry in America. Luckily for you, he's a figurehead that's only there for 4 years and tries to steer America in particular directions. And he has a little magical effect on the stock market. Come on. Donald Trump is not the president right now. Why is the stock market surplus? Why is there a surplus in the stock market? He hasn't done anything. He hasn't put anything in place, right? He does have the capacity to affect the room. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And his room is the United States of America, if not the world. He does have the capacity to cause people to make particular decisions in anticipation of his decisions. Absolutely. We'll go there. We can say all these things. But let's get back to the point. This person is not a high moral person. This person, when the record is laid out, history will not paint him in the greatest way because the man has particular demons. They come out of his mouth that we have seen do not fare well for his potential legacy. He doesn't bring out the best in even you conservative Americans. He brings out your worst. January 6th, if not, was a demonstration of what he brings out in you. And so maybe you are now embracing this nostalgic period, this new American renaissance, where you feel that you are recapturing something that you have lost. But Donald doesn't bring out the better angels in most Americans. He just doesn't. He's not that guy. And now the conclusion is he a racist though? Does that make him a racist? Does that put him in a position where you got to call him a racist? Before I answer the question, one of the harshest things for white people to hear in 2024 is, you're a racist. You hate that. No, I'm not. I'm not a racist. I've done all kinds of things, and I've done this, and I've done that, and I've done this. And black people sit calmly and we say, maybe you need to understand what racism is. Now, to be fair, most white people in America don't even have the power to be racist. Racism is about power. At one time in the history of your great union, racism was on every plantation. Racism was on every street. Racism was in the police force. It was in the water fountain. It was in who allowed you to go up in an elevator. Racism was everywhere in America. It's not everywhere in America anymore. That's true. But where does it live? Racism still lives in some of your most powerful institutions. Does it live in the White House? It does. Does it live in the Pentagon? It does. Does it live in the minds and aspirations of certain Americans who want that power base back? It absolutely does. Are you able to do it by yourself? You can't. But can Donald perfect a racist agenda for America? Not only he can, but our fear, my fear, is that he is starting to put all of the things in place to do it. We were terrified of this brother by the name of DeSantis. DeSantis was a scary dude down there in Florida. All those things that he wanted to do. Donald is going to do everything DeSantis was doing in Florida. He's going to do it in the entire 50 states of America. Does he qualify? Does he have the power to do it? Does he have the willpower to do it? Does he have a racist agenda for America? This is Del K. Brereton, and this is The Real Spiel. Let me take a look at the few comments. He's definitely a criminal. He's definitely a convicted criminal. My brother, I'm so lost that I got a flashlight and a map that's going to lead me to glory. I'm glad Trump is back. I need some money. Ash, at least you're telling the truth, girl. Ash, you're telling the truth. Be happy with what you have. Central Park 5, Dick. I heard you. I said it earlier. You know what's scary? There's a man who can't even walk up the stairs without falling on his ass. What do they call that? That's ageism. JMF, that's ageism. Leave that man alone. Uncle Joe, leave Uncle Joe alone. Uncle Joe's gone now, man. Leave Uncle Joe alone. Give Uncle Joe a chance, brother. Listen, if Uncle Joe didn't have a little foggy thing going up there, Uncle Joe be the president. He'd be number 47 right now. Only Uncle Joe stepping down made sure Uncle Joe's legacy didn't go into the next set of presidency. But Uncle Joe would be your president too, all right? And don't think that Donald Trump is able to walk upstairs easy too, all right? Don't think he can walk upstairs easy too. That's an old man too. Come on, leave these old people alone. Some of us got old bones, man. But God bless everybody. God bless everybody. Isn't this guy who said Harris would win all the swing states? Well, did I say that, John Smith? Go back and check the record. Father, we thank you, Lord God, that I've been able to talk to some of these conservative Americans, and they come on here every single day and tell me what's what. But God bless your union, and thank you, everybody, for coming on. This is The Real Spiel. This is Del K. Brereton signing off. We'll talk to you tomorrow.